We're very happy to have Reinaart Vanhoe to come to talk to us about his experience in his observation and participation in this Indonesian art group. As I said in our previous sessions or in our discussions this semester, that we need to know how to understand either the historical trajectories or this contemporary social fabric and this logic that's formed this social fabric before we know how do we situate ourselves to take on our own project. Okay, either it's for research or it's for activist movement, NGO, or for artistic intervention. Okay, so this is why through this semester we have been doing all these different cases and also different discussions of this theoretical perspective, such as this border politics or this logistics or this racism or new ethnic discrimination and so on. And how does that recur again and again, okay, and for what reason? Whether that's also triggered by the government or it's encouraged by the government, okay. But now we also need to think, how do we counteract? How do we take alternative actions, okay, through whatever project we could. So we are very happy that we could have Reinaart today here. But we need to do interpretation. Otherwise, I could only read from the statement that I was given. But we need his old friend of him, so it could give a more proper introduction. Right. Okay.
And thank you, Professor, for making this happen. And Reinaart Vanhoe is a Belgian-based artist researcher from Belgium, but he is now based in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, where he has been working and living for a long time. And he has a background from fine arts and experimental films. And he was teaching at Willem de Koning Academy at Rotterdam for some years. And on the other hand, he made a lot of writings, which also translated into exhibitions, films, installations, etc. And in 2015, he published a book called Also Space, From Hot to Something Else. And the book is mainly about the first 12 years of the Jakarta-based artist initiative group called Rugrumpa, which I think some of you should have noticed, because the beginning of this year, they are being announced to be the creator of the next documentary exhibition. So I think some of you should know that group. And on the other hand, that book also focused on other artist groups in Indonesia, like Walk the Rock, but then Yono, Moel, I try my best to pronounce, Jatiwangi, Art Factory, etc. And in general, the book is more about how to see art practice in the citizen scene instead of just for the art scene or maybe the cultural scene of a particular educational class people. And his latest concern is more on the concept of neighboring and also how to speak together and how to build together. So maybe we just move on to his sharing now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for invite for talking. In the beginning, that Rini introduced me to you, I was doubting to give a presentation because I want to first familiarize and know people and know where I arrive. So that's why it was good to have been here at 1:30 to see a little bit with what you are dealing with. And I think that's an important thing for me. Just to come in somewhere as an alien and to go out again is something we should not do too often. or at least understand that kind of alienness thing. Then you could ask why you from Rotterdam and Belgium should tell us something about Indonesia. Isn't that a kind of alienating kind of thing? I agree on that. And I agree on that as well, that if you write a book, which I don't have with me and I have not put in my presentation, but if you want, I can send a PDF. My email will pop up in the presentation, so you can write it down and ask me for the link. I will send it to you. If you write a book on Indonesian art, or a certain specific Indonesian art, and you don't speak proper bahasa, just Itian or just sedikit, then what are you doing? But I could write a book because of a long-term friendship, and that's what I do. I make friends, and from there I do things. So I think you should speak the language before writing a book like that. But with some help of some friends or through friendship, it is also possible, but I think you need to be more careful, because if you don't know the language, then, like I talk to you, but listening there is actually the most important thing. Hearing the side lines is important to write a book, although I tried my best. I didn't try, I'm just a simple artist. Like you are maybe researchers and do your best in reading and formulating things. Artists have a kind of, in that perspective, easier life, just to be simple artists and do things that we think we need to do without firm proof of where did you find that and where did you find that. So I would like to stress that I'm a simple artist. I try hard my best and I try to think rightly as well, but just from the position of an artist. That's also important for me. Because with your presentations I saw interesting things, but often just as art, or I mean simple artist, whatever. It means that if you see yourself as a simple artist in that perspective, that you do it together with other kind of people and not your own art and put that in an exhibition as the best statement of an individual expression. So if I see the presentations, it's interesting, but what I sometimes miss is to be connected to something, and that is exactly what I think in the art scene we miss, to be connected to what we speak about. Often we speak about a subject in the one scene, in the art scene, and forget that it's actually we talk about a citizens scene. So we need to find, in my perspective, we need to find new ways of where we address our topics. And a funny thing that occurred to me when some of you were presenting is that in Indonesia, I don't know if there are still the protests in the streets today, but because of some laws, youth came onto the streets and protested quite for a long time. I don't know if it's still going on or not. No. It has been going on for 2-3 weeks, quite intensively. And I heard from some friends, and with good reasons, and they won some things. But I heard also from my friends that there was a whole a Twitter group, or a whole discussion on Twitter, was the best foundation for protesting 5 hours. Like, oh, this foundation is not working because it's like, it goes away in 2 hours and we are here for 5 hours, so you should take this and this and this. So what is nice is that in like standing for something firm, also some joy and humor comes along. I don't know if you followed that thread on Twitter, but there's always humor attached to it, or there's always a human kind of thing attached to it, and that's for me an important thing. Let's try if my slides will make sense to you, and always feel free to interrupt and to ask. That's an important thing for me.
Before you continue, I think you also need to know who are all the students. So for those who are from Indonesia, could you raise your hand. Indonesia. Okay. And from India. 1, 2. From Hong Kong. Okay. And yeah, over here too. South Korea. China. Yeah, right here, 3. And Taiwan. Okay. And Poland. South Africa. And Vietnam. Okay. And US plus England. And you're from India, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, okay. I covered everyone? Okay, okay, good. Yeah, so that you know there's some complex combination. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Unfortunately, it's good. But unfortunately, we still need to say our country names. Hope in 50 years that we don't need to do that anymore. Yeah. But it's good to know a little bit from which context everybody is. So we already said I'm Reinaart Vanhoe, living in the Benelux. If you have notes, remarks, links, or you want to receive the PDF of the book, you can contact me at corporate@gmail.com. We all are corporated by Gmail, so we'll just admit it. I grew up in a context of avant-garde art and alternative art spaces, or alternative music venues. I guess you have a good grasp of what that knows, avant-garde and alternative spaces. And I learned to understand my limitations in that way that I'm concentrated to leave critiquing the world to understand how we should build together, how we can work together. Because I think critiquing society is one thing, but I think we don't live in the circumstances that critiquing is needed now. We need to talk and to build together with people that we believe in, and we need to make each other strong instead of just critiquing individually through society, because that makes us weaker. So it's important to familiarize and to be related to the topics and the things that you talk about or that you research about. So it's important not to stand as an observer or a distant observer to your topics, but you should, I think it's very important to be related to the topics that you do. My Indonesian connection is a connection by chance, and I'm very happy and very fortunate to have been once invited to an Indonesian art group called Ruang Rupa, and we have worked together, and that was in 2000, and it was interesting because all my doubts I had with contemporary art were addressed a little bit there in that little moment of time, and it was so interesting that things went slow and quick at the same time, and I never experienced generosity. Generosity accept who I was without any problem. So that made me to say I'm coming back, but I wanted to save money. I didn't want to ask for subsidies, so I just saved money, and after 3.5 years I was able to go there. And I said I'm coming for a residency, and they said we don't have a residency. Okay, I'll see you in a month. And that was it. Avant-garde or alternative places is like for us kind of people find places. It's like our space, experimental place for experiment, to find new friends or to find friends, to a hideout, to express how we would like to express, but also maybe a cynical space. And a cynical space is interesting in 2 aspects. Cynical is, in a positive way, is not accepting the things that you know, but always want to find something else. So the moment you know something, you want to find something else. And a cynical space as well is just as YouTube did before, or what I can do with the microphone is like just break things for the case of breaking things, and then saying that it's important because we need another understanding of reality, some kind of play. And I think we have to take care of that kind of cynical understanding. So I asked myself that avant-garde or alternative space, like to whom or what does it relate? And I think a lot of alternative spaces became just mainstream and are actually not really an alternative. And we could also question, how did these languages and these places develop through time? Maybe these places are stuck in a language that is from the past. And also ask myself with these alternative spaces how they include a more diverse perspective, having a better understanding of the biotope, a less monocultural climate. How to include a more diverse perspective? I mean, these alternative spaces often host people who studied, for example, art or at the university. So it's a limited group of people with a certain kind of language. And I believe that these spaces should have a more diverse climate of much more diverse people. That's why I say like new or neighborism or looking into the neighboring is important to find totally different perspectives to include in your speech, in your talk. So we have to re-understand how to feed the organism that of an alternative space. I think that's an important thing. I think how to feed the organism of an alternative space, we really have to consider that. And in that term, we have to give up arts to reuse the arts. And I think it counts for many different professions. It counts also for cultural studies. You have to give up cultural studies to reuse or to make better use of cultural studies, sociology and whatever. I might be wrong. I say some things very strongly, and I strongly believe in it. But also, if somebody has other arguments that are valuable, I will quickly change it. And I found a book, The Provisional Avant-Gardes, little magazines by Sophie Seita, and she pleads for the continuation of avant-garde and what it means. So I'm waiting for the book to see some counter words. If we talk about Indonesia, most of you know it. If I do a talk in Europe, that's a different kind of case, but still I want to show. If you talk about Indonesia, it's quite hard to talk about Indonesia, because if you see we are in Taiwan, and Taiwan is not even 1/3 of Java, the biggest island on Indonesia. For me, Indonesia is a word on itself. It has many different cultural backgrounds, many communities, many languages like communities. I didn't try to say ethnics. Many languages, many different influences. So it's hard to talk about Indonesia itself. And I only can talk from my Indonesian friends through contemporary art, because we met each other via contemporary art. That's also a specific thing. And they are mostly from Java, the main island, mainly Jakarta and Yogyakarta, so not even the whole stretch of it. It's very important because if you go to the other islands, there is a strong sense of they from the central of the country. As if, and that's why I think it's a world, it's the same as how you are from the center of the world. Let's say the US or Western Europe. There's a kind of feeling of that. So that's important to know that I only talk from that perspective. And if people from Indonesia persons from Indonesia, if you want to interrupt in what I say, please feel free to add or to correct. Because my knowledge is only via the English language. What interested me in art in Indonesia is a total different approach of contemporary art. Totally is, I just took two quotes, simple quotes. One that Darmawan said in a newspaper, we know there's a phenomenon of artist collectives working with communities, but there are also communities using an artistic approach to their activism. And in Europe it means that an artist is important, so we should defend their position. But as artists we can also maybe just assist a community in their artistic approach, because maybe we can learn a lot from them, or maybe we can just assist. I think that position is quite important for a profession as an artist, but also as a professional researcher, I guess. And Eko Prawoto is another artist, said in the context of a public art exhibition in Sonsbeek 16 in Arnhem, the Netherlands, when he was asked, what will you do? And he said, you have already enough great artworks here in Europe, so I don't need to add to that. I'd rather make something else. And I think it's also a very nice and confronting sentence in the perspective of Europe, to say that there's already enough good artwork, so I don't need to bother with that. I can do my own things and I can just add something here. And that's something I also often say to my students in Rotterdam, that you don't have the burden of making another great article, or you don't have the burden of to make another yet big artwork. You don't have that on your shoulders. We have already enough good articles. We already have enough good artworks. So you can start to find other methods of finding things and relate yourself to things. I have mentioned that this talk will be about mutual assistance, that translates in Indonesian in gotong royong. It's an interesting term, but also a very tricky one. It's a very contested one. So gotong royong means mutual assistance. And there's a nice article, if you're really interested, there's a nice article by John R. Bowen, giving some insights in the political position of where it comes from Suharto regime, the dictator regime in the 60s. So I hope to talk about mutual assistance through the examples that I give and through what I'm aiming at in my own practice. So, neighboring is a term that I use lately. It's not the best yet. I hope to have better ones. Also, like a citizen scene. Reading some articles of you, I think like maybe in the future I can also change citizen scene and to have a better word. But for now, let's just use the words that I use in the hope I find better ones. Neighboring, why? How to understand art for a citizen scene opposed to art for an art scene or a culture scene of a certain educated class. And I think a lot of, if you think for yourself, places that you go to or articles that you get via other people, they come through a certain kind of people with a certain kind of education. Same for exhibitions. If you go to an exhibition space, you have artists who studied art and visitors often who studied at the university or at a certain kind of institute like that. And we talk about truly interesting stuff and looking at truly interesting works, but actually there's only a little part of society which the works often deal about, or about nature, but only a very little part of nature that the work deals about. So I think that's very much important to realize and to reconsider your practice. So for me, it's in that perspective, it's important how to speak together, how to build together. In a society of this, where we lose, so to speak, against the big corporations, we can act against, but we will not go too far. But if we unite with some neighbors or some people in your neighborhood that you feel energy with, talking together makes us stronger. And maybe not today, but in 20 years. And I think that's an important move in being against something, or like saying like, I don't want to lose my energy by fighting Trump. I think we lose a lot of energy by fighting Trump. Instead of talking about him, just ignore him. I mean, there's a lot of work needed to oppose to him, of course, but we can also say, like, let's not lose our energy and we just talk together. We just talk about things that we care about and that we can do something about. So that's where I think we need to go. So we need to understand the ecology or the habitat of a practice. And how to understand different to include different perspectives of how people enter the interactions that we do with art, but also with the interactions that you do with your research, I guess. So that's the scene where I'm at. Is that clear enough? Yeah. And why learning from Indonesian practices? Does that exist at all? There's no one art practice. There's like thousands of art practices, and if you not known to art and you want to understand something about art, where to begin? But you can begin with recommendations of friends or like articles of newspapers or magazines that you read. But there's no such thing as an art practice. So there's also no such things as an Indonesian art practice. And maybe I make a fault in my subtitle of the book, is like how Indonesian art practice reinvent networking. But that's a very big statement. So we just need more contextual understanding, I think, and habit of relating to different communities. You unwilling. It's a bit of a quickly written sentence, but we need to understand the habit of relating to different communities we unwillingly and willingly belong to. What I mean with different communities that we belong to is, if I have what kind of telephone? Samsung telephone. Everybody who has a Samsung telephone belongs to that community. I have, I don't know what brand this is. I'm branding. Carrera glasses. Everybody has a Carrera glasses is already in a community. Everybody in this class is a community, and we can go on and on and on. We have like hundreds of communities that we belong to. And actually, to whom do we talk? We only talk to a few limited communities. Enough of this. Okay. I hope that ground is clear from where I start. What I will try now is to exemplify this. Yes. Also, English is not my native language. I will try to exemplify this through some 3 or 4 artist initiatives still. One is Jatiwangi Art Factory. I don't know if somebody knows Jatiwangi Art Factory. If somebody knows the region of Majalengka, Cirebon, Bandung, yeah. Normally I just do out of my head talks, and now I'm like confronted with 2 pages of words. I'm like, I have to be right in what I say, because else the page will say, hey, but this is wrong. Jatiwangi Art Factory is a group of, well, maybe by now I'm almost 20-30 people working together in a building. And Jatiwangi is a part of Jatisura area, located in Majalengka, about 1 hour from Bandung and 3 hours from Jakarta, in ideal traffic situation. Because maybe most of you know, Jakarta and Indonesia is quite notorious for big macets or big traffic jams.
It's important to add it up. It's really important.
1 and 3 hours you hardly make. Jatiwangi, the area was before the major roof tile industry of Indonesia, and I don't know when it exactly declined, but around the 90s it declined. So during the economical decline, I think after the end of the regime of Suharto and the also the financial crisis in the 1980s. During the economic decline, mostly women left for domestic work to the Middle East. And the problem with that was that men stayed in the village or in the area. Women sent money back to Indonesia to save the money, or that's why they went to work to the Middle East. And often, to generalize a little bit, men spend